everyone. So happy to be live with Lesley Thomson. Start off with an intro to you and your book, Likeners in the Roof.
Oh, sound was a bit strange then.
Start us off with an intro to you and your books.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Is this coming out back to front?
It'll be fine.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Because I could put a mirror in front of it. Anyway, The Mystery of Yew Tree House. Some of you will have seen the trailer with Alfred the Poodle. I'm afraid he's not here tonight, just me. So this is kind of, I wanted to write a kind of Agatha Christie-esque type mystery. So this has got, all the kind of ingredients that you might want: a village, country, small, well, it's a country house, not a manor house, country house, which Jack and Stella come to stay in for a month in the country. Some of you will know Jack and Stella from the Detective's Daughter series. And almost immediately, Jack's twins find a skeleton in a pillbox. Some of you will know what a pillbox is. If anybody is from Sussex, they certainly will. But a pillbox, for those of you who don't know, is kind of hexagonal or maybe octagonal building structure built by the Royal Engineers in early 1940 to protect the home front when they were expecting an invasion from Hitler, and it was going to be around about that time. It never happened. He went to Russia in the end. And they had a kind of slit in the walls of each of these sides, whether 6 or whether 8, through which the soldiers would point, well, they were home guard, would point their rifles, their Sten guns, whatever they ammunition, well, and whatever artillery they had. They had a lot more than is kind of we've been led to believe from Dad's army. It was a lot more professional than that sounds. It was a lot less funny too, actually. So they were in there in the night waiting, for parachutists were the first expected invaders. And these pillboxes were set by waterways like a river or on the coast or at vantage points where they thought the Nazis would come up, and they were all set for them. And being a crime writer, I saw one of these. Well, I see a lot of them, Walking Alfred, in fact. And I thought, well, got to put a body in one, haven't I? So I did. But I thought it was much more interesting that the body had actually been there for 80 years from the Second World War. So we've got a dual timeline story, which is 1940s, early 1940s, and present day. And some of the characters from the past still exist today, are still alive. And so there's the mystery that was one mystery which was never solved in the 1940s, which is solved quite quickly in the present day, but there's a whole new mystery that comes out of that. So yeah, I hope it's a good old page turner. That's the intention. And it's got a vicar, and it's got an old colonel. So it's got kind of some of the ingredients, as I say, of the kind of green-backed golden age paperbacks, given a bit of a modern take.
Very good introduction. Sarah has said hello to both of us.
Sarah.
Karen said hello, both. She just read it on holiday.
Oh, excellent.
In the grounds of a rectory.
Oh, well, that was a perfect place to be, wasn't it? Goodness me, yes. Yeah, some of these are Facebook users, but we're saying hello anyway. Hi there. And hi there, Donna.
Lisa Holloway said hello as well.
Hi, Lisa. Good to have you all here, everyone.
Yeah, Karen saying the rectory was a really good location.
It was. Almost too good, I think, Karen. Because that could go, you might have even seen the Reverend Snace gliding by.
Karen is doing much better than me. I'm going to confess to only being about 6% in.
Well, I hope you've got a treat in store. Who knows? I'll leave that to others.
I'm sure I do. I've loved your last... When we've done interviews for at least the last 2 books that you brought out, and I've been a big fan of both of them. So
you have, and you've been very supportive. So and you have a day job which is very, very stressful and busy and full on. You haven't got concrete at your school, have you? Rack concrete.
I work in an old converted Victorian hospital building.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think we are preceding the horrible concrete.
Oh, God. Yeah, so anyway, you're forgiven is all I can say.
It does start really well, though, doesn't it? I mean, it hooks you from the opening page.
Yeah, well, I hope it does. Yes. I mean, I wanted to grab the reader. I always write the kind of story that I want to read. So I kind of thought, where would I want to start from? And we get to know the house really before Jack and Stella arrive in the house to stay there. So we know it when it was a home. It's not a home now, it's a holiday home. And it's been quite dilapidated, really. I mean, if you had hired this as a holiday home for a month, you would just pack your bags and leave. But it's being Stella who's come to stay, although she's a bit kind of taken aback. She likes a good clean, so she can get on with that. So she's actually pretty contented. But we see the house in its, if you like, heyday when it was lived in by Adelaide and her two daughters. And the opening is um, that Adelaide's husband has just been killed in a bomb blast in London. He was working in London. He was just that bit older and to not to be called up, although he would eventually have been called up. But this is at the start of the war, and they were taking the younger men first. And so he was working in London, and he got caught in a bomb blast. So um, and so he's dead. He's just died, and we meet the family at his funeral in Bishopstone, which is where the story is set in both timelines, and where I was to do the trailer for this with Alfred, who's as you said, that he carried the trailer really. I don't know why anybody heard anything I said or bothered. Get that woman out of the way. We just want to look at the dog. And he's actually in the book, but he's the model for Stella's dog Stanley. If I need a model, then I can go to him and just see how he behaves, because it's very similar.
Great dog name as well, Alfred.
Yeah, well, I think it is, but actually it's very great because, I mean, obviously there's an awful lot of Alfreds where we walk Alfred. So, call out Alfred, we get more than one dog coming to us. But yeah, Stanley is not a bad name either. In fact, two of my readers actually got a dog and they called him Stanley, which is very sweet, after Stella Stanley. So I think that's probably the biggest accolade that you could possibly get as a writer, when one of your readers names their dog after your fictional dog.
That's a good source of names for dogs. Fiction, isn't it?
It is.
My
Yes.
my sister-in-law's dog is named after the dog in the Rivers of London series.
Ah, yeah. No, I think. Well, I teach creative writing at West Dean College with Ellie Griffiths, and we're always saying, "Oh, stick pets in your stories." They're very good for generating drama, but also moving people from one scene to another, from one location to another. Um, and they also create a certain amount of suspense, because if the dog hears something that you haven't heard and you're alone in Yew Tree House, for example, you could get very scared. Yeah, you haven't heard anything, but the dog's heard something and its ears are pricked up and it starts to whine. So dogs are a very good prop, if you like. Although I wouldn't think Alfred or Stanley would want to be described as a prop.
Sarah said it was lovely to meet you at the event in Leeds.
Ah, lovely. Yeah. I have to put my glasses on to read this. Yes. Oh, yeah. I was just saying before we came on what a great event that was. It was a really good kick-off event for the UK Crime Book Club. We had such a good time. It was great fun.
It was aided by a stellar headline panel.
Yes, we had William Shaw and Ellie Griffiths, who I've just mentioned, of course, and you all know Ellie Griffiths and William Shaw. Three of us do a lot of events together. And yeah, we did one in Leeds for you guys, and it was such fun. It was really good.
It was marvellous. We couldn't have had a better three to finish our day.
It helps when you know each other very well and you like each other's books. So, we all can talk about each other's books, not just our own, which is great.
Karen has said she's interested in the other books in the series. Should she go back to the beginning or dip in and out?
If you've already read this one, that's fine. I mean, I would now go back to the beginning, but you could dip in and out. It's up to you, really. Whatever suits you like the look of. I mean, if you want to go back to the beginning and find out how it all started, then yeah, that's not a bad idea. But I've often arrived in the middle of a series of some of other books. Louise Penny comes to mind, actually. I started her series. I was at number 4, I think. But then I went back to number 1, and then I was going, oh, I see. Oh, okay. Which I think is quite a nice thing to do. So I probably would say now go back to the beginning, but really, you know, whatever comes up.
Yeah, Helen Eve has said that Karen should go back to the beginning because she's got a treat in store.
Ah, okay, yes. And Lisa Holloway, I see, says, you know, they all stand alone in her opinion. Well, that's true as well. So, you know, that really is. I mean, far be it from me to dictate to how, you know, how to do it, really, whatever you like to do. But I'll leave it to the readers to tell you, Karen.
It's got to depend on how you like to read as well, isn't it? I really like to read series in order.
Yes, I mean, I tend to read things in order, unless I have, as I say, come by one by accident. But then again, you know, I'm hoping people won't start reading in order and just get on with this one, because it is a standalone in its sense. I wrote it very much thinking, if you like Jack and Stella and you know them, then you'll enjoy that. But if you don't know them, then you'll just enjoy the story. So I think it really is 6 of one, you know, and 10 of the other.
We've got so many questions.
I know they're coming.
Melanie has said, what started you writing and what keeps you writing?
I think what keeps me writing is I always want to tell the next story. And I started writing just for that very reason. I just wanted to tell stories. So, I mean, of course, there's the obvious thing like a deadline, but it's not that. I mean, you know, it's just I start thinking of a story and I want to tell it. So I start to type. And I'm always telling stories. I mean, you know, I could be thought slightly barking, and I'm about to be thought slightly barking. But we've got, because of Stella, I bulk buy cleaning products. You have to, you know, you've got to write about what you know. It's one of the old adages. So bulk buying cleaning products, I mean, if I know about it, I can write about Stella knowing about it. It's all very obvious. And so there are about 10 bottles of lavatory cleaner in our downstairs loo. And I've arranged them in such a way as it looks as if they're a choir, with one at the front conducting and 2 at the back chatting to each other, because they're faced, you know, they look like that, they're bottles. And I mean, even that I make a story out of, you know. I mean, it there's stories everywhere, and I just find them, really. And then I get into a pickle with how that's going to work and how that's going to work. But that's what gets me writing. Oh, see, somebody likes my glasses.
I was going to comment on your glasses as well. They are amazing.
Well, yeah, and very good for events, because if you have to read, you just do that, and then when you finish reading, you do that. And I have to remember that when I'm wearing my other glasses, ordinary ones, that, you know, not to snap them in half, but they have proved very useful. They're just better than having a string, which I always find it just doesn't quite work for me. I don't know. They sort of, yeah. So I recommend them to anybody who has to quickly snatch off reading glasses and put them back on again.
I thankfully don't need reading glasses because I'm very bad at wearing mine.
Ah, well, lucky you don't. I mean, I used to wear distance, but I don't anymore. I've had a cataract operation, and so I've got perfect vision, but I still need reading glasses. So,
yeah, see, I need the distance ones, but I just forget that I need them until I really can't read something.
yes, yeah.
Who have we got? Donna said she had no idea it was so far in the series and she loved it as a standalone.
Yeah. Well, there we are. That's probably a good way of saying it. And I see Sarah has also said,
yeah,
that how do I keep track of my characters and locations? Notebook, spreadsheet, Sarah. And it has to be said, I don't always keep track of them, and that's what the joy of a copy editor is, because they will say, wait a minute, Jack walked out of the room 5 minutes ago. How come he's still there? Because he hasn't come back. That sort of thing. But in terms of the characters, I think, I mean, if I can't keep track of the characters in terms of just in the story, then you guys can't either, really. So I do try and keep that to an understandable level. But in terms of their backstories, and because it is a series, I'm hampered, if you like, or I'm leastways, or very lucky to have a backstory for the characters, whichever way. And that's when, again, when the copy editor comes in and says, I can think of one where she said, I think Jack was actually born in 1978, not so and so. And I thought, oh yeah, that's right. So I do try to keep some sense of it. I do use a spreadsheet, but more for the whole novel rather than literally the characters. So I have a spreadsheet that builds as I'm writing, where each chapter I put down in the spreadsheet. I put down what chapter, how many pages, purpose of the chapter, what actually happened in the chapter, and the last line of the chapter, and then also the point of view from which the chapter is written, because I need to be clear. Is this Stella's point of view? Is it Jack's? Is it just the narrator who's got more of a, if you like, an omniscient view? And I put it all on Excel because I just love doing all the kind of conditional formatting that you can do. So if it's Jack, it goes the cell goes black with white writing. If it's Stella, it goes another color. I can't remember at the top of my head. And also I've got it's green for the past. So if I make the spreadsheet, if I pull right back from it and make it quite small, and I can see all of it, but I can't read it, I can see the number of times it's got green lines all the way through it, which tells me how many chapters I've written in 1940. And you can wake up now, Caroline, honestly. Nobody else. It's gone very quiet, I think.
No, that was really good. Because you've got two series going, do you find it easy to swap between the characters, like to get into the heads? Because you've got like Freddie in the other series, and they are quite different.
So say that slightly again. I think I got it, but I wasn't quite clear.
So you've got your two series going. How easy is it to swap between the characters?
Very. I think because to me they're so different to my mind. I mean, some people will know from this novel that I've taken Tony Kemp from Death of a Mermaid and from The Companion last year, police officer. And she's the police officer on the investigation for the murder, for the body found in the pillbox. And of course, Stella and Jack have come to Sussex, where Tony works. And I thought about this long and hard, and I thought, should I mix these two? Because they are from different worlds. But then I thought, yeah, why not? Because it just makes sense that, as I say, Tony is a Sussex police officer. It would be her investigating the case. And what would happen if she met Stella? Two very strong women from very different worlds. How would that go? And that was very interesting to me as a writer. I've had some readers saying they love it. So, we'll see what everybody thinks. But I really enjoyed writing that, having the two worlds collide. I don't know that I make a habit of it, although people have been saying, oh, I wish you would. We'll see. I think I really could get a bit confused with them all coming around me. But yeah, no, it's quite easy to my mind, Stella's a very different person to Tony. And they just come into my head as their individual characters, and each one builds. So I don't have a trouble getting them mixed up or anything. And in terms of the two different series, I can easily switch back to The Detective's Daughter or to the one that may or may not be. I mean, each one is described as a standalone, but they do have characters that cross over, and really they're becoming two series, I would say. I don't have any trouble switching across. I mean, I'm now writing one with Tony and Freddie, and that's there. I recognise their relationship. I recognise them, so it all works. So I do have trouble remembering what book I'm talking about. I don't think it was in Leeds I did it, but I did it somewhere where I started talking about the book I'm writing at the moment. Never mind the one that had just come out or was going to come out, or the one that was out. And it was just like, I think everybody was just kind of, well, they probably were less confused than me, I think. But yeah, I suppose you have to really keep it together. As a result of that, I am more likely to forget to something off the shopping list, or something to do with the house, rather than the actual novels, which are pretty clear.
I 100% have to say that Death of a Mermaid is my favourite Lesley Thomson book.
Ah, that's lovely. I really enjoyed writing that one. I
I'm a
really,
massive fan of that one.
there was a lot of fish eaten in my household during while I was writing that, because I was doing so much research into fish. um, but yeah, I really did. I really enjoyed that one. And in fact, the guy who sells us fish, who gave me the idea, he didn't give me the idea, but he gave me the idea because he's a mobile fishmonger. He was telling me the other day that the fishery man who I interviewed for the research for that has been reading my novels ever since, which was very nice to hear.
That's really nice.
Yeah, so your sort of worlds come back to each other.
Donna's got a good question. She says, have you ever given any of your series characters a quirk, behaviour, or mannerism you later regretted?
That's a really good question. No, I don't think so. I mean, the only thing I can think of, which I didn't give, I forgot, is less that I regretted it, is that in The Detective's Daughter, which I had to reread for an event about 2 years ago, I discovered that Stella chewed gum. And the Stella that I write about now would never chew gum. You know, I mean, she wouldn't be seen in public chewing gum or at all. So I dropped that because I mean, I obviously had dropped it, and I was horrified that she ever had. But otherwise, um, it's less that I regret it than the characters themselves. You know, like Jack used to hide in cupboards and spy on people and try and catch murderers. And, you know, he had to break into people's houses to do that, or he got into the houses. And it was quite creepy that he did that. But he was doing it for good reason. But nevertheless, it was quite. But Stella's kind of, you know, made him promise not to do that. And he doesn't do it now. But that's less that that's not really because I thought that he shouldn't. I wished he didn't. Um, I think that, I mean, the only thing that comes up to my mind is that I, when I first invented Stella, she had a brother, and then when I wrote Detective's Daughter, there wasn't really anywhere for the brother, so she didn't have a brother, and that meant she was an only child. And I didn't want her to be an only child. For one of the reasons is pragmatic, but which is simply that if you're an only child, there aren't siblings you can write about and bring in and create more drama. And you know, you're a writer, you need more drama. So I found a way which wasn't outlandish, of her discovering she did have a brother and how she had a brother, and that in itself became a story. So I guess that's the only thing I can think of, and that's not really a quirk, is it? It doesn't really count because it's more about, you know, her family situation.
Lisa asked you what you love most about the process of writing.
Um, Redrafting, I would say. When you've got the first draft, and you start again, and you've got more ideas, or I have more ideas because the whole picture, the whole novel is there then. And then you go through it again, and I discover, you know, great chunks will come out, and I think, how on earth did I ever write that? Why did I even think I should write that? But I'm working with material then. I'm working with soft clay, if you like. Where I am at the moment, which is just literally writing the first draft, there's blank pages ahead. And that's quite daunting. I just write each chapter. So definitely I would say I love the second draft, but I probably really love the draft because I'm lucky enough to be published. I love the draft which I start to get when I do the edits suggested by my editor, and she's told me she loves it. That's when I really enjoy it, because I know that I'm totally on the right track. I've got someone behind me with suggestions that I've never yet, with the two editors I've never yet disagreed with. And that would be my most favourite bit, I suppose, because all the anxiety of whether I'm writing a rubbish book has gone at that point, and all I'm doing is making it the best book it could possibly be.
So, with your teacher head on, from being your creative writing teacher, what's your one most important thing you told someone who was starting off?
One most important,
Thing you'd tell someone who was starting off writing?
and I've still missed it.
One most important tip for a new writer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought you did say that, but I didn't want to launch into a top tip, and you hadn't said that. Yeah. Well, I think it's probably what kind of linked to what I've just been saying. You know, you start writing, and for all you writers out there, keep writing. Don't, you've got the blank page ahead, but keep going. And you're thinking to yourself sometimes, oh, this is rubbish. Don't let that stop you. Keep going, and don't wait for the muse to hit you. I mean, that's almost the biggest piece of advice, because it never does. The muse hits you when you're staring at a blank page and your fingers start to move and you just type. And then suddenly it's like you're pushing your car and it starts to roll. But yeah, I mean, definitely don't wait for that muse. The muse won't come if you wait.
Sam says she can't believe anything you ever write is rubbish.
That's very nice, Sam. But oh yes, the first draft would horrify people. I think there'll be nice little bits in it, and they'll be generally there, but there'll also be other bits you think, no, badly written, badly. We don't even need that bit. And indeed, I talked about my spreadsheet with the purpose of a chapter. And if I'm thinking about the purpose of a chapter too long, then I think to myself, well, there's no purpose to that chapter. If you've got to think about it, delete. But yeah, I think, I mean, all the books that, when you see the hard copy, literally hardback hard copy, I mean, it's not just me that's worked on that. My editor's worked on it, the copy editor that I mentioned, the proofreader, and indeed even the narrator of the audiobook, Richard Attlee, is an actor. He spotted a couple of mistakes and they got changed. So, it's what it is today. When it comes out fully cooked, it's not just down to me. Although I'm very lucky enough to have my name on the cover, and obviously mostly it's down to me. But you need, I take advice from wherever I can get it, frankly.
We've got more questions. Sarah says, if you wake up in the middle of the night, do you have a notebook for ideas?
Do you know, Sarah, I was asked this question at my launch last week. And I said, oh, I really ought to have, and I still haven't, because it's about 4 days later, I still haven't. I did used to. I think now I would use my phone, because that's by the bed. I don't look at my phone once I'm in bed, but if I had a brilliant idea, I could record it. And I think that would make more sense. It would be a very bleary voice. But what I used to do, because I used to think, well, I'll remember in the morning. You never do. That's another piece of advice. Or even, when I'm out walking the dog. And in the old days, I used to have an answer machine. I've probably said this. And I used to leave a message on my answer machine when I was out with whatever it was that I had brilliant thought that I'd had. And then I'd get home and I would have entirely forgotten that I'd done this, which was really the purpose of leaving the message, because I would have forgotten. But I'd see the message light blinking and get all excited that somebody had phoned me and think, oh, how lovely, I've got a friend, hooray. Who is it? And then I'd press the button and this voice would say, the knife is under the pillow. And then but then I would remember that the knife needed to be under the pillow, so that worked. But nowadays, yeah, it wouldn't be as much. It would be a metaphorical notebook. It would be my phone, and I'll just press voice record.
Nice. Sam says, does it get easier the more you write?
In some ways, it depends what easier means, I suppose. I'm more confident that I can write a novel. And I'm not thinking, will I ever get to the end? As in, will I give up before the end? I know I will get to the end. I know a lot of the processes, the ones we've just been talking about even. I know the first draft is the hardest. There's a song there. But I think there always is a bit, and I think the biggest thing, and I often say this, I generally, halfway through the first draft, think this really is rubbish. Is there any point in going on? My partner says, you always say this at this point, which I do. And then I think to myself as well, yeah, here comes the nervous breakdown. I know this one now. So I'm familiar with the path, if you like. I don't think it gets easier because I'm always trying to challenge myself with what I'm writing. I'm always trying to put try something slightly different, which I'm doing with this novel. But whether it's mixing characters or its point of view and how I'm writing the story, or where I set the book, these things, those things are new to me. So there's always a challenge. I think if I stop challenging myself, I think it's not worth doing, quite frankly.
You said that this one's got like a bit of a nod to the Golden Age.
Yeah, very much with the sort of, as I was saying, with the setting being quite Christie-esque, with the sort of, I mean, everybody sort of settles in, I think, with reading something, and Karen was in a rectory garden. Well, we can immediately think, oh, being in a rectory garden, we all perhaps have a picture of what that might be, and it's probably slightly outdated to what that particular rectory garden was like. But as soon as you introduce quite familiar concepts, people know where they are, including the writer, which was the point. And I've always been interested in the past and houses and buildings and how they were used and how they're used now and traces of how they were used. And so writing a story about a house that had been lived in as a family home with all that happened there, with the children being measured up the side of the wall, with the pencil marks, which are then discovered 80 years later, and questions are asked. But we know some of that because we've been in the past. I just really like the idea of a relatively, I mean, my stories aren't gory. I mean, gory things happen, but you don't witness them. I don't describe them. I think what I'm concerned with, which wasn't so much the case in the Golden Age, is when somebody has died, that they are mourned, they are lost, their families grieve for them, people's lives are changed unutterably, their parents' lives, for example, and that I want to express that. I suppose. I mean, it recently on Amazon, it was #1 in death and grief in their subsection bit. And I was very pleased about that, because that was part of what the story is about. Every murder story is about death and grief and loss and bereavement, which is not in the Golden Age as such. It's more about a puzzle. So although I'm writing something that is slightly a puzzle, a more modern day take on it brings in all the other stuff, the emotions, the repercussions of whatever's happened.
Melanie Lockett has asked you who your influences are and what you're reading at the moment.
Well, I mean, what I'm reading at the moment, and what I've been reading for the last few weeks, indeed, is the complete works of Anthony Trollope, which I can't recommend enough. Absolutely fantastic, very funny, very good on women. That's my bedtime reading. But otherwise, I read William Shaw's The Conspirators recently. Well, it's a while back now, but Ellie Griffith's The Last Remains example. I'm also reading books for research. So I'm reading a book on revenge, which is a very jolly afternoon read when I finish writing. I reread Sarah Waters' The Night Watch recently, which is a really good read. I love Sarah Waters. So it's years since I've read her, and I read it for an interview I had to give, and I thought, well, I better reread it. It's not enough to say I loved it, and it was such a clever book. And that's an example, I think, of challenging yourself, because her book takes place in the Second World War, and at the end of the Second World War, it starts at it's not dual timeline, it's one timeline, but it's reversed. So it starts in 1944 and it ends in, I think, 1941. So what you discover is you discover where everybody is, and you actually discover how the book ends. But as you go back through the book, you discover how it got there. And it's actually really satisfying and very clever. I don't know how she did it. So I've just finished that as well.
Helena said, isn't it a good feeling to look at all the books you've written and think that whatever else happens in your life, you've given all that to the world?
Oops, where is that?
It's 1, 2, 3. 3 from
I've got
there.
so much stuff. Yeah, I think I haven't got it yet. So what was that? Helen? Was that Helen?
Yes. Helen Eve said, is it a good feeling to look at the books you've written and think that whatever else happens in your life, you've given that to the world?
I thought that the sound is a bit blurry for me, so I'm not hearing everything very well. And I can't see her question to read it from here, which would be helpful, wouldn't it?
I think it's more a nice comment.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I didn't quite hear it, but I'm sure it'll probably pop up any second now. It probably just hasn't come in yet. We'll move on, but I'll find it and then we'll reply to it properly.
Yeah, someone said they can't hear me. I think there's a bit of feedback coming through the speaker.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Um,
Do you? Sarah's asked if you've got a go-to auto by author, but you can't say Ellie or William.
no. Well, they are true. I mean, in the old days, that it used to be Ruth Rendell writing. Well, Ruth Rendell writing as Barbara Vine, particularly Sarah Paretsky, Sue Grafton. Now, Michael Connolly, I'd say, is one. Fantastic. I mean, anything he writes, I want to read, whether it's Bosch or whether it's the Lincoln Lawyer series. When I'm asked these questions, I always go blank, I suppose. Um, so I'll stop with that at the moment, but I know there are others and I can pop out with them as we go on. But yeah, I mean, I think I read quite widely, to be honest. I mean, there was one book, oh, here it is indeed, I was sent. It's a proof by Amy Engels. Amy Engel, I did it for you. I did it for you. Hold it the right way. That should be out by now. I love that. So that I read that about a month ago. So I read books if people send them to me, you know, to have a quote on. But otherwise, it tends to be, yeah. Well, I've said it really, but I'll come back if I think of more because I mean, Karen Slaughter. There's quite a few Americans I love. Sarah Hillary more recently. So it's less about go-to ones than yeah, I want to know how will that go, you know.
Fair enough. Will Templeton, you've met him at Leeds as well. You can't miss Will. He's really cool. He says, have you ever got a fair way into a book and felt it wasn't working and scrapped the lot?
Yes, not for a long time. I'm trying to think. I have done that long ago in the past. I can't remember what, but I have sort of thought there's no, you know, no use plodding on with this and swearing and spitting while I turn the pages. But I haven't really had that experience for a long time, which is great because, you know, that's quite disappointing, really, isn't it? And I really hope that doesn't happen to me. But, you know, it could well do. It's the risk we take.
Do you ever get inspiration for a book, like with the pill box, and go, I don't want to use that because it's too much research?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, let me think. Distant Dead. That came out of me loving going to Tewkesbury and visiting Tewkesbury Abbey, which is a really peaceful place for anyone who lives in Gloucestershire. It's worth a visit. And I went in there because, bring Alfred in again, I was with Alfred and it started to rain and I saw a sign that said dogs allowed inside the abbey. So we shot in there and it was Evensong and sat at the back. And I worried because I thought, is he going to go nuts when he hears the choir? Is he going to start barking? But he didn't. He was very calm. And then I started wanting to go there more often, which I did. And then I thought, as you do, see, I'll put a murder in that corner, and that's how that started. But also, like with the Ghost Girl, going way back, that was a cemetery where there was a very tall Madonna. In fact, in the book, I accidentally changed it. Well, I didn't accidentally change it. I remembered it as an angel, but in reality, it's a statue of the Madonna, and the grave. It's about 10 foot tall, and it towers above the rest of the graveyard cemetery. And it was for a 16-year-old who died. Doesn't say how she died, and it was in I think 1926. And it's pure white, and that made me think. And I could feel the grief coming off it, or so I felt. That sounds a little nuts, but I really could feel this sense of the loss from this huge thing. And it was on a huge wide plinth. You could have parked a car on it. And that got me thinking about what would it be like, you know, if a child died and what, you know, how the parents might mourn it and mourn the child, a girl or a boy. And so that was the germ for that story. So sometimes it's just one thing that can spark the rest of it. I mean, the book I'm writing at the moment, it's just got this car crash shrine with hubcaps and a number plate and wing mirrors, all the sort of flowers and all the sort of thing you often get at one of those shrines. And I always find those very moving and wonder what happened there. So I've used that for the focal point for this story.
You've been asked what the most bizarre thing you found out whilst researching your books is.
Oh, well, yeah, immediately what comes to mind is a bit, close your ears, animal lovers. When I was writing The House with No Rooms, which is set in Kew Gardens, I did a lot of interviews with various people in Kew Gardens, botanists and a botanical illustrator, for example, but also the man who was in charge of the cleaning at Kew Gardens, because I was going to give that job to Stella. So I wanted to know what it involved and what she was likely to clean. And in the course of that, I asked him if Kew Gardens was ever closed. And he said, "You're only on Christmas Day." And I said, "Oh, yes, well, I suppose Christmas Day, you've got to have that off." And he said, "No, that's when they shoot the geese. They have to cull them. And there's so many of them." And it was like, "Oh, okay." So, that did go into the novel, I have to say, because but it was a bit of an eye-opener and a bit of a, all right, poor geese. And I was there recently, actually. I was signing some books because they now stock House with No Rooms at Kew Gardens. And I kept looking at the geese and thinking, oh, I hope, you'll live over Christmas. So I think that's probably the most bizarre thing, if I think about it off the top of my head. Quite shocking too, really.
Does Alfred enjoy going on the research trips?
Sorry.
Does Alfred enjoy going on the research trips?
He didn't come to Kew Gardens because the dogs aren't allowed, but I think he just puts up with it. I mean, you saw him yesterday in the trailer, the wind was practically blowing him off his feet, poor thing. But yeah, I mean, he does get, in the dog walker, I mean, he gave me the idea for the dog walker. So in fact, the book is dedicated to him. And that did involve walking along the towpath by the River Thames quite a few times. But yeah, I don't know that he knows much about it, but what a star he actually is. But I mean, in fact, I've since had a book dedicated to me by Ellie Griffiths. But before then, I'd never had a book dedicated to me. And why would you? It's not very common. But Alfred had. So I've always thought that was quite funny that he had a book dedicated to him when nobody else I knew had. Anyway, that's slightly beside the point. Of course, he's not very grateful about that.
Helen says this chat is making her want to reread all of your books. Gardens one.
Well, that's very nice. It could have had the opposite effect, couldn't it?
No, never. Asked if you find yourself looking out the train windows, for example, and looking for a good place to bury a body.
I'm going to have to see that on the screen. Sorry. Yeah, here we go. Thank you, Sam. Yes and no. I think what happens is that it's not that I'm looking for somewhere to bury a body, which in itself is a little scary, isn't it? It's more that I suddenly think that's a good place to bury a body or deposit a body, hence the pillbox, for example, or Kew Gardens. So it's more that I'll be in the place and that will occur to me. What I have noticed is that I'm out with friends and they start spotting bodies or places to bury bodies. And they say, "What about over there? Look, isn't there a body in the woods over there?" And it's like, "No, it's not." And they say, "Oh, it's just like the sort of thing you'd think of." And I say, no, it's not. It's what you thought of. So I get a lot of that. My friends are turning into would-be murderers around me. And I suppose that is partly my fault, really.
But nice. What in a weird way, I think.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. It's very sweet. It's very funny.
I'm trying to see if I've missed any questions.
Yeah.
No. What made you choose to make Stella a cleaner in the first place?
Say that again. Sorry.
Why did you choose to make Stella a cleaner?
Wait, why did I make her a cleaner? It's funny. I think that's again that came to me kind of. It's something to do with her forensic behaviour. And I just thought to myself, if you're a cleaner, you have the reason to go into people's houses. You have a reason to be in other spaces that most of us don't have a reason to be in. And if you do go into people's houses, you're then ferreting into, say, the darkest corners. And particularly Stella loves deep cleaning, so she's getting behind bath panels. behind cupboards and things. But the way I had it, it was that she was the daughter, literally the daughter of a detective, and he in the Met Police, and he really wanted her to follow in his footsteps, and he gave her an application form when she was 18 for the police force, which she tore up, didn't want it, because her experience of being in the police was that whenever when was going to do something with her dad, he got called away. So that was not what she was going to do. But what I wanted to do also was to have her back into the job, if you like, without realizing it. So she does a job that's very similar to being a detective, because they too have the right to go into houses and look into the darkest corners, etc., and see a side of human life and hear about human life that we wouldn't necessarily hear. So in the end, when she solves a case in the first book because she finds it in his attic after he's died. But because she's a cleaner, one of the jobs she gets is cleaning crime scenes. So she's somewhere where a murder has happened, or she finds a murder. She finds a body, which is hence like in Kew Gardens. So I saw a parallel between the two jobs. I mean, for all the cleaners out there, you're probably horrified. And there's somebody came up to me in Leeds actually, and was describing how she deep cleaned, and it made me feel like, oh my God. I mean, it was, you put a toothbrush through the holes in the plug hole to right down into the pipes. And there was something else she did, and it was fascinating. But that kind of forensic behavior is not dissimilar to being a police officer. So I saw a parallel, and I thought that had legs in terms of somebody who got about, who could unofficially solve crimes without being a police officer.
I mean, she's a great character.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah.
Tom's asked if you visited any settings from other authors' books.
Sorry. Which one? The Lisa Holloway one?
No, other bit. Have you visited any settings?
Yeah, from other writers' books. Yes, I've been to. Well, I follow the footsteps of other writers. So, I live quite near where Virginia Woolf lived. So that's less about a setting. But I'm trying to think in terms of. I think it's more like telly, because I did go to America years ago and see where they filmed The Sopranos. Did a sort of Sopranos holiday thing. It was a 2-day thing, and that included a coach trip to all the places where the murders were done. And that was fascinating. I would like to go. We're talking about Michael Connolly earlier. I would love to go to LA. I mean, it's on telly now, so you see some of it that way. But when I was reading the books, I used to think, I'd really like to go there, because he was naming the places. If they're real settings, you know where to find. You know where to go. But I mean, otherwise, no, not particularly. It's been more about where the author has been that I've been quite interested in. And there's a writer called Barbara Pym, and I don't live that far. Well, I don't live that far from her in Gloucestershire, where I also live. And we've been to her cottage and seen where she lived, and I've just thought, oh, Barbara Pym lived here. So it's more about the writer than it is about the setting on the whole.
Nice. You might it's like a sign up for them. Where I live, there's a sign saying that Alan Bennett was born in like my little. There's a sign where I live saying Alan Bennett was born.
Oh, really? Oh, lovely.
There might be eventually a Lesley Thomson lived here kind of sign on your.
Yes, who knows? One day. Don't really want to consider it, but yes, I guess it would be a long time if it happened. It wouldn't happen actually. So but yeah, I don't really mind if I disappear without trace. But as long as people keep reading the books, I suppose that would be lovely. It's a legacy, I think. But I'm not. I know that you never know. Books go out of fashion. They go out of print. I mean, there is a plaque quite near me in a village not far from here. East Dean, it's called, which has a blue plaque for Sherlock Holmes, and I love the idea of a blue plaque for a fictional character. So I wouldn't mind a blue plaque for Stella that says "Stella cleaned here" or something. I'd quite enjoy that.
You're going to go to a book event and be given one now. Someone's asked how you celebrated the Mystery of Yew Tree House being a bestseller.
With a modest glass of wine. It was just very funny because it was number one in 3 categories, I think I said earlier, in those subcategories on Amazon. And it was cleaning and caretaking, and housekeeping and handy hints, I think it was, and death and grief. And it got all 3 at once one day, and that just and it's therefore it's called a bestseller. And that was just great because it felt very, it was good fun, really. I think I think it makes a difference to the algorithms. I've no idea, but it was good fun.
What event? Yeah, handy hints is quite worrying.
Yes. Well, I think what's worrying is that you buy this book because you think handy hints and housekeeping, and then you'd be quite disappointed, really, wouldn't you, in terms of the content.
What other events have you got coming up?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to be in 2 libraries. I'm going to be at Haywards Heath Library in Sussex on the 3rd of October, and Lewis Library, which is where I live, on the 4th. I'm doing a thing in Ledbury with those 2 named writers that I shan't name again, called William and Ellie. That's in October. I can't actually. Oh yeah, the 26th. And also going to be there. They've organised a festival in Shoreham in Sussex, and the 3 of us will be on a panel then. So we'll try and repeat last year's. We will never be able to repeat last year's performance at Leeds, but we'll do our best.
You will do. You, Ellie, and William together. Genuinely brilliant.
Well, that's nice of you to say so. Thank you.
And who else have you got at your festival that you organised together?
Sorry.
Who else is at Shoreham?
Oh yeah, Kate Moss. God, you see, this is terrible, isn't it? I've taken notice that I'm at it. My head, there's a whole load. I mean, it's packed with people, but none of which can I name. I'm not good at lists. This is the trouble. You say, name a list, and it just goes straight away. So I don't know. But people can find it on the website, Fatal Shore website.
Sarah says, any events in Yorkshire?
Yeah, no, I haven't got anything coming up, which is a shame. I mean, it would be lovely. But yes, I think I've been to Yorkshire for the last time this year, which was Leeds, to the UK Crime Book Club Festival, which was fantastic. And I see you're announcing a new one. So anybody who's going to be up there, or not up there, but just go up there, it'll be great fun. It was a fantastic time last year. It was very hot as well. I don't think Leeds is cold necessarily.
It's very friendly, but it is often quite cold.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely city though. I love Leeds, and we had a good
time. You've been asked as well if you collaborate with any other author, who would it be and why?
Well, I have actually collaborated with another writer, and I'm going to have to break the rule again and mention Ellie Griffiths. We did write a short story together, which we do plan at some point to put up on our websites, which it features Ruth Galloway and Stella Darnell, and they go away for a weekend. They don't know each other. They both go on a photography course for a weekend, and there's a body. So the rest I'll leave. But yes, and that was great fun. That was really good fun. We wrote our bits separately, and then we came together to put it together and edit it. At one point, we were both sitting in the same room with our laptops, and it was Ellie Griffiths that noticed first that we were sighing a lot. We sort of, and so we both stopped and said, "We need to breathe." But yeah, that was great fun. I wouldn't make a habit of it. Not, as in, I would only really do it with Ellie, I think, because we really have a synergy, and we really worked with each other and bounced off each other. It wouldn't be something I'd do as a thing, generally speaking.
You wouldn't include William in?
No, probably actually. William, I would definitely. Yeah, no, I'm thinking. I suppose what I was thinking of there was being asked to do it with a writer I didn't know. I think that would flee to the hills if I was asked to do that. No, absolutely with William. Yeah. I'm not sure he'd do it with me. That's a different matter.
Well, he's kind of gone off in his own way with the conspirators, and and things, hasn't he? Quite a different direction.
He has, but I believe there's another Cupidine novel coming out, isn't there? So look forward to that because I love them. I love them all. I mean, I'm enjoying all of them, but they're very different. And I particularly love Cupidine as a character and Zoe, her daughter. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's a place I've been to, Dungeness, before he wrote books there and after. And now I think I'm going to meet Cupidine if I go there. But I didn't think I was allowed to mention that because that's William and Ellie.
No, you are allowed to mention them. You just weren't allowed to mention them in the case of being your like go-to authors.
No. Fair enough.
I mean, you can't do an event and not mention them.
Well, it's quite difficult, isn't it? Really? No, I mean, they're good. I think that it's very good for writers. And this is another handy hint or top tip. If you're a writer, find yourself good writer friends that you trust and respect, who will support you and who you support. That's you can't ask for more.
No, I think the crime community is very supportive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Is Yew House a real place?
Yes and no. It is. I mean, I named it, but when I went yesterday to Bishopstone to do the trailer, I decided not to include Yew House in the trailer because I didn't want hordes and hordes of people to be turning up to take pictures of the house, and also in case they sued me, quite frankly. But when I was there once with friends, I was walking around the village, and I looked at this house and I said, I'm going to set my next novel there. I just saw the house and thought, that's a perfect house. It was double fronted with a path down and a gate, a wrought iron gate. But the funny thing is, in my head, it's a very different house to the one that it actually is. And I looked at it through the trees yesterday. I didn't actually go across and look at it properly, partly because I wanted to keep my yew tree house in my head. But yeah, there is such a place, yeah.
Marvellous. We are nearly at the end of our time with 3 minutes left.
Oh, anybody else? Last few questions then.
Yeah, you've got do you get angry or frustrated with your characters?
No, in the answer to that, really, because they get angry and frustrated with each other, but it's my job to kind of duty of care. It's my job to make it sort of happen as it does. I think if I got really fed up with a character, they'd just die. No, I'm intrigued by the people I write about. I mean, I invented them, so at the end of the day, it's me. I get angry and frustrated with me. I think that will probably be the answer to that question.
Good answer. Do you want to remind people what they're going to go away and buy?
Oh, I see it back to front on my screen, but I think I trust you, Caroline. You guys can see it the right way around. Mystery of Yew House, and you can get it in all good bookshops and online.
On Amazon.
Yes.
Other places, yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't name the place, but it is on Kindle Unlimited if you're a user.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good way to read as well. So whatever works for you.
And on audio?
And definitely on audio. And if you're a fan of the Archers, which I am, then the man who plays Kenton Archer in the Archers, Richard Attlee, who is the grandson of Clement Attlee, the Prime Minister. So there's a lovely link there around the war. He became Prime Minister after the war, but he was in Churchill's national government. He reads it and he's got the most beautiful voice. I mean, I could listen to it, and even though it's my writing, I could listen to it because he's just got a really lovely, chocolatey, warm, rich voice. So if you prefer audios, that's another way to do it.
Lovely. And someone on here has said, which one of your characters did you go for a drink with?
Which of my characters?
Mm-hmm. Would you go for a drink with?
I think Lucy May. Definitely Lucy May every time. I just love her, actually. I never get angry and frustrated with Lucy May. And I reckon I'd really enjoy having a gin and tonic with Lucy May. Several, probably.
Excellent. And good that you like a gin and tonic.
I do. You have to be, just one. But yeah, in the summer particularly, yeah.
Excellent. Well, next time.
Anyway, yeah.
Next book festival you're at, we'll be buying you D&Ts. No.
My last word's going to be, what?
Thanks for joining us.
Well, I've really thoroughly enjoyed it, and thank you everybody out there as well. It's been great. So have a good evenings, the rest of you. Thank you.